these are the days that define season.
Redden again. Cipriani, little bit of floating magic. Cipriani scores for Wasps.
Wow.
They've been on the back foot all game, but Danny Cipriani strikes.
Gopeth, now Daly, and now Piatow! They don't do the ordinary. They do not do the ordinary. And players who couldn't watch that kick, players who turned their back on Jimmy Gopeth, envelop him in celebration, and the Rico goes mad. Howley is going down the line. Oh my goodness! Howley! What has happened there?
What has Poitrino done? He's waited for the ball to go. Howley will not give the cause up. It's infield. It's a try. It is a try.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's finally here. The Wasps Report. A Wasps-themed rugby podcast created and hosted by Wasps fans for Wasps fans. My name is Alex Chinnery. I'm joined by my co-host Rob Sutton, and we are ready to talk all things Wasps. Let's get down to business. Okay, so I'm just going to run through a couple of quick housekeeping details for the podcast. So during the season, we're going to be doing weekly podcasts. They will drop every Thursday, hopefully. And we're going to be talking about all things Wasps. So whether that's a look back at the game the week before, preview of the game to come, new signings, how the new signings are benefiting the squad, what the new players are like, what the squad's like, how Dyer's setting players up and setting things up, and give our opinions on that. We're aiming to do 2 more podcasts over the summer before the season starts. Including a bumper preview show the week before the season starts. So the season starts on September the 3rd. The London doubleheader was announced. And we will be doing a podcast that comes out the week before then. We want fan input into this content. So this is a fans podcast. This isn't a club produced thing. The club isn't involved in producing it at all. This is solely done by myself and by Rob, and we want your input into it. We want to know what you want to hear, so that we can talk about those issues. I've had a couple of people come to me on Twitter and say they want stories of the old days when Wasps were at Loftus Road, and when even earlier than that, any fans that were around from then. And we want you to be involved. We want to get fans on the podcast. We want to have guys from the supporters club at Alley Wasps on Twitter, and we want to get them on. We want to get some of the prominent Wasps fans on, and eventually people who are fans, who have opinions, can come on and give them. And we've got to remember, the more listeners we get, the bigger this podcast becomes, the better guests I'll be able to get for it, and you might eventually one day hear from a squad member, or hear from someone that works for Wasps, or someone that works at the Rico, or any of these sort of ideas, club legends. Every new listener, every new retweet we get on the podcast, every new visitor to the website grows the brand and makes us more noticeable to the club, and that will be really important going forward. So any retweets, any help you can give us in making this bigger, and any feedback you can give, is hugely important. Now, on with the breakdown of the summer tours.
Yes.
Well, I think there's only one place really to start, and that is England's victorious summer in Australia.
Absolutely, wasn't it just fantastic?
Oh, 100%. I think that, well, the performances by some players who were so down after that World Cup have just been magical.
Yeah, I think the two really to highlight from that is Chris Robshaw and our very own James Haskell. I think those two both could easily have sort of thrown in the towel at the end of the World Cup, but they've just come back completely different players. Both had good seasons with their clubs, and especially in the first test, Haskell was immense. I mean, the hit he put in on, I can't remember which Australian it was.
Pocock. He's a great defender normally, but that was one of the best hits I've seen him put in for some time. And
fantastic.
Rightly, in my opinion, named man of the series, even though he only played twice.
I agree.
Fantastic performance.
I think he was man of the match in both the two games.
Yeah, and thoroughly deserved both times. I just love the way we came at Australia. They weren't. None of the team was scared. They all took the game to the Aussies in their own backyard, and if there's anything better than that, I don't think we're going to see it.
Yeah, it's this no fear brand of rugby, isn't it? That's just. I think there were glimpses that it could have been there under Stuart Lancaster that England could play. You look back at that France game at the end of the Six Nations where England scored 50 points. It's always been there with this group of players, and I think Eddie Jones has sort of finally got it out there. Yeah,
I think his ability to sort of put an arm around the shoulder of certain players has really made them step up, because especially guys like Billy Vunipola and all that back row three, Vunipola, Robshaw, Haskell, almost have all said that they've benefited from Jones coming in, putting an arm around them and saying, look, come on guys, you're better than this.
Owen Farrell, I think, as well.
Yeah, I think he's really impressed me, because there were times when the Aussies tried to get under his skin and he just didn't let them, but he didn't lose any of that fire that he has, and we know he has. So that really pleased me, and obviously his goal kicking is world class.
Absolutely, I think he missed two kicks, I think, in the whole series.
Yeah, I think that's correct. And comparing his fortunes to his opposite number, who in my opinion's he's one of my favourite players, Bernard Foley. To watch him with ball in hand, he's fantastic. But
I think it's summed up in, I think it was the second test, Australia got a penalty in the first minute, and Foley missed touch by, well, it was closer to the posts than touch, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
it was a hideous kick.
And suddenly, as we say, the fortunes have been reversed. England are riding high, and Australia are coming off the back of an embarrassing defeat in their own backyard.
Anticipated losing 3-0. They might have thought we might drop a test against this lot, but certainly they didn't think they'd lose 3-0.
No. And I think an honourable mention has to go to Maro Itoje. The kid's got class. I remember watching him captaining the England under-20s the last time they won the World Cup before this year. And he was class then. He looked a class apart on that pitch. But he's come to the 15, the real men's game, and he's looked a class apart again.
Yeah. The first time I actually saw him play was at Twickenham in November, when Wasps were obviously involved in the London doubleheader, and Saracens played Worcester in the first game. And Itoje won the Man of the Match award as a substitute, which sort of just sums up, the sheer talent of the man. And it's just a shame he plays for Saracens, because he is, and he also seems like a really nice bloke as well.
I know. I don't know how that's manufactured, being at Saracens, but
no.
I mean, there's other Wasps obviously to talk about who are in the England squad. I mean, Joe Launchbury continues to make fleeting appearances off the bench, but when he had his chance in the game against Wales, when Cruz and Itoje had obviously played the day before, I think he took it with both hands. I haven't seen him play that well in a long time.
Absolutely, I thought he was absolutely terrific in that match. And it's just, I think he's just a bit unlucky. Itoje and Cruz are first choice at the moment, and I can't see those two being broken unless there's an injury. So I think he's just going to have to be patient. The positive side of that could be that in the autumn internationals he might be at Wasps more than we are used to seeing him.
Yeah, yes, and we're going to need him, I think. So there are a few players who could be called up during the autumn, I think.
Yes, well, I think Matt Mullen will go again because I think he's had a good tour when he's been asked to play. Yeah,
I think he's done very well off the bench. When you're coming into a pack, especially off the bench, and you're the substitute prop, and that pack's been on top. They've been dominant. For the biggest sort of compliment you can have is to not lose anything. So that when he came on, that England scrum didn't then start going backwards, which is, for me, just shows that he belongs at that level. And we've known it for a while.
I think he does, because I've been a few times when he has been called into the England squad where I've thought, really, But I think he has shown his class. And the game you mentioned earlier against Wales, I thought he played very well in.
Yeah, and I think when we signed him at Wasps, I was happy because he was a very talented young player, but he was very raw, and the effect that Dyer's had on him, being a front row and knowing a bit about the dark arts of playing in the front row and scrummaging, has been huge, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
And, well, next up, I suppose we should really talk about the curious case of Elliot Daly.
Yeah, again, I think he's another one who's maybe he's just in the England setup at the wrong time, because 2 or 3 years ago he'd have walked straight into the team playing the way he is now. But you can't see him getting ahead of Alex Good or Mike Brown at fullback, really, even though Mike Brown's had a bit of a dodgy spell with England. And personally, I've always been a big fan of Jonathan Joseph. I think he offers England a lot in attack. Not that Elliot wouldn't as well, but I think the clincher for me with Elliot is why don't you just play him just for the boot?
Yeah,
just for the boot.
Yeah, it offers you so much of an upside when the opposition have to be that much more aware in that 10-metre channel between the 10-metre line and the halfway line of giving away a penalty.
I think you've seen that he's played for Wasps, because a few of the European games you've seen teams furious that they've given a penalty away on the halfway line.
Yeah, I think the Leinster game was the biggest one that it really benefited us in, because we got a very good lead through him kicking penalties early on, and then they stopped going over the ball in that 60-metre, that range between 60 and 50 metres from their own line, which freed up the game a lot more, and he scored a world-class try in that game.
Yeah, the same happened at home to Toulon. I think he belted one over, and I think he missed another one, but he had the distance. And then again, Toulon just sort of stopped giving away penalties in that area of the pitch.
Yeah, and it's something that we've utilised at Wasps, and I think England will do in time, because I think he just needs one chance, and he could take it with both hands and get in ahead of Joseph.
Yeah, I think the autumn internationals could be, because England play Fiji in the autumn internationals. You just feel that Eddie will probably shift the team around for that fixture. I think the Fijian style of play will suit Elliot's style of play.
Yeah, and I think in that you could see Wasps at 8, 9, 10 and 13 in that game with Hughes, who qualified to play for England yesterday. Dan Robson, Danny Cipriani, and then Elliot Daly quite easily in that team. And I mean, just saying those names makes me excited for next season now.
Absolutely.
I was talking about those two. I think it's fair we move on to the Saxons, because I think both of them had a very good couple of test matches. For England's second string.
I must just say, just in general, I mean, the Saxons were just a joy to watch.
Yeah, I wonder how much of an impact Andy Titterell's had on that style of play. Obviously, being from the Wasps coaching staff, there's so many Wasps in key positions in that Saxon side that although it was a squad that was picked to go out and play expansive rugby, the players that were picked were definitely there to give it a go. I imagine that Tits and the other coaches were.
There was someone from Exeter, I think, as well in that coaching staff for the Saxon squad, and they obviously play. I mean, they can play a pretty exciting brand of rugby if they want to.
Yeah, and I like the idea of that, getting some of the best of the coaching staff from the teams that play good rugby into an environment, and especially the younger coaches with the supposed younger B team players. It creates an atmosphere that everyone's hungry, everyone has something to prove, and none more so than our new signing at fly half, Mr. Cipriani, who well, if that's not a way of proving yourself, then I don't know what is. He kicked well, he ran with the ball well, he had great decision making, and I'm very excited.
I think that point there, the decision making, I think that's what's come on leaps and bounds, and I think Sale can take a lot of credit for that, because I think he was a bit. I know he was young and all that, but I think he was a bit naive in his first stint with England, just with a few decisions, and I think it's a really exciting prospect for Wasps to have him, and to have two real top class tens next season with Jimmy Gopperth, who is sort of dead eye accuracy off the tee, and then you've got Cipriani to play a sort of expansive game.
Yeah, and I think, especially with just a quick sidetrack onto Wasps for a bit, with Jimmy's strong carrying style, I could see him playing 12 next year for Wasps in a kind of Ricky Flutie style playmaker 12 that has the Alex King inside him, or Danny Cipriani inside him. And
but I think you've still got the potential though. If Wasps are obviously fairly covered at fullback, and playing Cipriani at fullback.
Yeah, but I like the effect he has on the game at 10 at first receiver, and I think. But then you could also, if he's playing at fullback, he could still come in and attack at first receiver. There's so many options there, and that will only create havoc. That will make us such a hard team to defend against. I'm very excited.
I'm just glad I'm not picking the team. I don't envy Dyer having to pick a team next season.
Absolutely. The hot stepper himself, Mr. Christian Wade, deserves a bit of a mention, because he came on at a tough time in the first game, because the game was won, and it was a tough game. It was at altitude, so the players were flagging a little bit, and he came on and sort of increased the tempo, increased the energy a bit from the wide players in the game, and I thought he looked good, and I thought he looked very good in the second test. His progress this year, or the year just gone, has been fantastic.
But I think as well with Christian as well, I would have loved to have seen him just had a crack at the sevens in Rio. I know obviously it's quite difficult. I know Simpson's gone, but the date sort of with pre-season and stuff. But he would just be electrifying on the biggest stage as well.
Yes, I think he would be fantastic at the sevens. There's no doubt about it. But at the same time,
but a whole pre-season for him, injury-free, which we've not said for a while with Christian.
Yeah, I'd like to see him fully firing on the first game of the season, ready, because I really think we can have a tilt at the Premiership this year.
Well, there's absolutely no reason though. Finished third last year, thoroughly deserved to finish third. We were a little bit below Saracens and Exeter, but with some additions, Saracens and Exeter aren't going to be particularly different to what they brought out the season that's just finished. So there's absolutely no reason at all why Wasps can't go again.
Yes, and I was pleased to see one of our new additions have a very good game, especially in the second of the Saxons games, and that's Tommy Taylor. He scored a couple of tries and looked to marshal that driving maul very well, which isn't something we've done very well this year. A lot of teams you've seen, especially Exeter, to make a real use of that driving maul, and we haven't at times. And maybe having someone at the back like Taylor marshalling it will be good going forward.
Yeah, I must admit that the few times I saw him play for Sale last season, his throwing was a bit iffy, which obviously means he'd probably fit in well at Wasps, considering how we finished last season. We couldn't win a line-out to save our life at the end of last season, but I thought his throwing was good for the Saxons, and his all-round play. He's a decent player in the loose as well.
Oh, he's very good in the loose. He's a good carrier. He's almost like that fourth back row player at hooker, which is the way the hooking position has evolved in recent years.
And I think that's the way Dye wants to go as well, with obviously the conversion of Johnson.
Yes, and Ashley's throwing will improve every time he practices
absolutely.
it. And knowing sort of the person that Ashley is, a couple of times I've met him, he'll definitely be working hard to improve that, and that's only a good thing, because you need depth in that position. You need to go in with 3 top class hookers, I think, going into a season. I think we could add another player there.
Yeah, potentially. Yeah.
Although the third England team to find success has a young Wasps hooker in it, and that is the world champions that are England under-20s. Phenomenal achievement against in a very tough field, in what is a very tough competition, because being with the 3 groups, only the group winners are guaranteed a place in the semi-finals, and then it's the best second place team joins them. And
very quick turnarounds as well, the games.
Yeah, games every sort of 3 to 4 days. I mean, it's a very tough competition to win, and you need incredible strength in depth. And I think England showed that they had that during the tournament.
Yeah, and I think some real stars for the future there. I think Harry Mallender looks a very good prospect from Northampton.
Yeah,
and he can play anywhere.
Yeah, and I think his experience at Premiership level this year has shown.
It showed, didn't it?
Yeah, he was almost like a man playing against boys at times when he had the ball, and maybe that's what we need to do a little bit more of, is start to bring some of our youth through. Players like Piers O'Connor, who had a great season at Bedford, and he won a couple of months. He won the Championship Player of the Month. Maybe it's time he comes in to play some games for Wasps.
We've seen it a bit. Alex Ryder, of course, had a bit of a run in the team during the Six Nations. And but I think as well, the reason Mallender got his crack at Northampton is they were just destroyed by injuries and England call-ups mid-season. And these things do happen, and it has proven to be just a brilliant stroke of luck for him.
Yes, yeah, but I think he has the talent to do it as well, and you have to have that, otherwise he would have sunk, not swum. And I thought our 3 lads, there were 3 Wasps in the squad. I thought they did very well, and I'm excited. Hopefully they can start to make the step up in the near future. Right, enough England talk. I think I can hear the Welsh fans cawing in the distance that we haven't spoken about them yet.
They don't care about rugby anymore. They're all football now.
Yes. Maybe we should call them Bales rather than Wales from now on. I thought they had a weird tour of New Zealand.
For an hour, they were absolutely brilliant, and then it sort of all fell apart.
Yes. If rugby lasted an hour, Wales would probably have beaten New Zealand twice. Yeah. And well, that in itself is an achievement. Because
absolutely. I thought Wales were in a real state when they played England, and obviously England's second 15, more or less, obviously missing 8 Saracens players, played Wales off the park totally in that game at Twickenham. And the score only says 29-13. You've got to remember George Ford missed 7 kicks, I think it was, off the tee. So I thought they were on an absolute hiding to nothing in New Zealand, and it was going to be sort of 50, 60, 70 points every game. But that first game, Wales played an absolutely terrific, no fear brand of rugby, and I think the guy deserves a big mention is Liam Williams. I thought he was absolutely outstanding.
I thought Williams was excellent in both facets, in attack and defence. and he really outshone the other Welsh sort of back three. I mean, I thought George North in the game he played was rather quiet. He struggled against his opposite number both times, whether it was Naholo, whether it was Surveyor, whether it was Ben Smith, who aren't bad players if you're going to struggle against someone in the world of rugby. But with North supposedly the world-class player, I don't think we see enough of it.
Yeah, I think Dan Biggar's another one who's gone a bit backwards as well over the last few weeks, from a Welsh perspective. I mean, it's obviously very difficult for a fly-half in New Zealand because you are going to get targeted, but just think the pressure got to him, unfortunately.
Yes.
And I think if you're looking ahead to the Lions, he's certainly fallen behind Farrell as a 10, and probably Jonathan Sexton as well. I think Wales can take some positives. I thought Toby Faletau as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolute class ball carrier.
But there is one thing I want to mention, and that is that offload by Kieran Reid to send Barrett over out the back of the hand whilst carrying two Welshmen on his back was a thing of beauty.
Yeah, it was one of those things that only the All Blacks could have pulled off.
Yes, yeah, and it shows how far ahead of the rugby world, the rest of the rugby world, they are. To do that so consistently well is what sets them apart.
Absolutely.
And Kieran Reid for me will go down in history as the player who was possibly better than Richie McCaw technically, but just wasn't Richie McCaw. Yeah,
I think the thing Kieran Reid needs to work on is his illegal offside. He hasn't quite got that pin that McCaw did, being able to be in an offside position but get away with it.
Yes, well, when they train referees up now, there are actually two law books. There's the normal law book and Richie's law book.
Richie's law book. Yeah.
Richie's law book, because he plays by a different set of rules.
Yeah.
Well, Ireland, so close.
I think they fall into the good effort but not quite good enough category.
Yeah, against the South Africa side who were there for the taking.
They were there for the taking. I was a bit disappointed with South Africa, really, because after the Japan fiasco at the World Cup, I thought they played some really nice rugby, actually. And they pushed New Zealand all the way in that semi-final and potentially could have won the game.
Yeah, and there are so many other factors that are destroying South African rugby at the minute. I mean, the politics side of things.
It's just a nightmare, isn't it, for them?
Yeah, whilst the sentiment and what they're trying to do is great, they want to get more black kids and want to get more black people involved in top level sport. That's fantastic, but they're going about it all the wrong way.
Yeah.
If you've got a national team that's winning games, and there are players of all races and all nationalities, not all nationalities, all races and all skin colours and all ethnicities in there, because they deserve to be, then kids are going to look up to them so much more and want to emulate them so much more. I think that the politics needs to be taken out of South African rugby for them to really get as good as they could be, because I've toured over there and they are light years ahead of us in terms of their youth coaching and their youth game. They are. I toured over there in quite a good school side, and we got absolutely stuffed every game because they are just so much better than we were at the same age. And I think if they could get the politics away from the men's side, they'd be a real force. But Ireland, they looked tired towards the end of the series. I think if they'd have, if these tests had been, if their season was sort of 3 weeks shorter and the test had been played 3 weeks ago, then they might have had a real good chance at doing something special.
I think what killed them was the fact they lost the lead in the second test. And that really hurt their confidence.
Yeah,
I think it was 26-13. I think at one stage they were in front and lost the game.
Yeah, and I think if they'd have held out and won the series, then the whitewash, or the greenwash, as it would probably have been called, was definitely on.
It probably would have happened as well, because South Africa were, I think, looking at making quite a lot of changes if they had lost.
But I think there's definite signs of improvement after what was a pretty dire Six Nations for Ireland.
Yeah, I think the only time they really turned up was that first half hour against Wales when they sort of shot into a 16-0 lead, and we all sort of thought, oh well, here we go again, Ireland will win the whole thing. But no, they were very poor against France and England, really.
Yeah, and I like a strong Ireland.
Yeah, I mean, there has been some talk about Joe Smith potentially losing his job, but I think that'd be harsh. I think he's done very well with that Irish team.
Yeah, and it's not an easy situation with all the sides that are in that sort of Pro 12 league. I don't really rate the provinces model all that much. I think when you only have 3 or 4 pro clubs in your whole nation, if the 2 big clubs like Munster and Leinster have been over the past few years, if they falter like they have done, then your whole national side is playing for those clubs, and you've not got any alternatives. Whereas you look at the English model, where Harlequins provided half the England team a couple of years ago, and they still provide a fair few, but that's now supplemented because Saracens rise with full of English players. That has, as I say, supplemented, and now England can pick from that pool, or from Wasps, or from Exeter, say.
Yeah, and I think as well, you were saying about the Irish provinces, if you look at the Leinster team that came in Wasps stuffed, I think there was 11 or 12 of the Irish team who played in the Six Nations was in that Leinster team. It is a small pool of players they do have to pick from, and they're obviously they can't replace Paul O'Connell, they can't replace Brian O'Driscoll immediately, and they've lost Luke Fitzgerald as well this week as well.
Yeah, that's a sad one at 28. He's a good player, and it's tough for Ireland. It really is. I think that's enough talk for. Well, I suppose we should give a little mention to the Scots. Two victorious in 2 tests against Japan.
I suppose it's a good effort because Scotland and Japan were obviously in the same Rugby World Cup pool, but the way the fixtures fell, Japan had a 4-day turnaround from beating South Africa to play a fresh Scotland team. So I don't think we've really saw a true Scotland versus Japan test in the World Cup, and we did. Certainly, I saw the first test, and Japan gave them a good game. But I think they've done the Scots a lot of good going out. They're a side who are improving.
Yeah, and I like the way they try to play, but I think at times they struggled in the conditions, and the conditions weren't suited to playing rugby. It was so humid, especially in that second test. It was so humid that no one could keep hold of the ball. And I think what Scotland lack, and it showed a little bit on this tour, is depth. Rory Jackson, whilst he had an okay couple of games, he wasn't lights out. He's never going to challenge Finn Russell for the shirt on the performances he put in, and the same for the young 9 who played in the second test, and was only after Laidlaw sort of came on and calmed things down and used his quality and his influence that Scotland sort of surged back into the lead in that second game.
Yeah, I think they are very over reliant on Laidlaw, I think.
Yeah, and when I was at England-Scotland in the Six Nations, and he ran the show for them. He was everything for them.
But I think as well they're relaying the pitch up at Murrayfield to make it an artificial sort of 4G surface like they've got at Allianz Park. So I think that's going to suit the Scots, particularly if they want to play this sort of attacking brand of rugby with players like sort of Tim Visser, Stuart Hogg. Yeah,
and I think in 2 years' time that will be some clash. England-Scotland at Murrayfield in 2 years' time will be an epic clash. Now, there's been a bit of news at Wasps the last couple of days. Couple of things to gloss over. Well, this morning, this is Tuesday, by the way, for those of you that were recording it. Matt Simmons announced as signed by the club.
Yes, the worst kept secret in rugby, I think.
Fissler said it in his column on May the 8th, and I think going back even further than that, I think the Egg Chasers on their podcast had broken it before then even.
Yeah, I think since London Irish's relegation, it's been pretty inevitable that he's come, but I think he's an excellent addition, to be honest.
Well, this time last year, when Tom Coventry came in and he brought Simmons in from the Chiefs, he was their star man in Tom's new look London Irish side, or London Irish Revolution almost. And I think he could be great foil for a Mile and for a Gaskell in there alongside Joe. Because he's good at the line out. He's happy. He's very good at the line out, and that's what Joe needs. He needs a good line out technician next to him.
Yeah, I think so too. Because we did fall apart a bit towards the back end of the season at the line out. It was sort of, if we don't throw it to Launchbury, no one else can catch the thing. It sort of felt like towards the end of the season. So to have two really strong lifters and catches and everything, and I think he's excellent in the loose as well. I thought he stood out. I know London Irish were relegated, but they weren't that bad, were they? You know, it's not like London Welsh who got 1 point. You know, Irish were, they were the worst team, but I thought Matt Simmons was terrific for them. So I'm really pleased to see him sign.
Yeah, so am I. This might be seen as a little bit controversial, but I think he's a huge upgrade on Bradley Davis.
I would agree. I would say Bradley Davis, sort of this season, the one just finished, for me, he went missing in the big games. He came on as a sub in the quarter-final against Exeter. First thing he did was throw an intercept pass. Waldrom's off under the posts. That's 7 points. Gave away a stupid penalty under the posts. There's 3 points. We're 24-11 down, and obviously at that stage seemingly out of the game. So, yeah, I just think it looked towards the end of the season that he knew he was leaving.
Yeah, and I think the fact that we got Wales to buy him out of contract and pay us some money for him is a great.
Yes, a good deal for us. I think
it looked great on the negotiating skills of whoever's in charge of that at Wasps.
Yeah.
I think that's great, and of course we have a little bit of a outside business news with Wasps Holdings, the creation of Wasps Netball.
Yes.
To play games, I think, are going to be played in the Jaguar Suite. The Vitality League has expanded. For those of you that don't know, that's the top netball league in England, and Wasps are going to have a presence in there, and I think it's great because. The whole idea with buying the Rico and expanding the brand of Wasps so that the rugby has other things to rely on is a great business model.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's another fantastic thing for sort of the local area. I mean, I'm not a Coventry local, but for the people who go along to Wasps who are from Coventry, Warwickshire, Birmingham, for them to have a netball Wasps team to get behind. I believe England are playing a netball international at the Rico at some stage as well, I think.
Yes, I think once they've worked out how to fit the Jaguar Hall up properly, and I mean, I'm sure they've taken all of this into account because the team at Wasps
I'm sure they're not deciding it now.
No, the team at Wasps seem to be very, very good, and I can't say I've seen them put a foot wrong in the business development side of things.
Absolutely,
over the last few years.
And I think as well, while we're just on the topic of sort of behind the scenes stuff, I think they deserve sort of a big shout out for last season, particularly for the sort of away trips in terms of sort of engaging the away supporters in terms of meeting, like the European semi-final down at the Madstad was just ridiculous, and it was so well organised. We all knew this is where the team was coming in. Bring your flags, bring your clappers, things, and just they've been absolutely fantastic for the old standing supporters as well to help us move up as well.
Yes, absolutely, and the new fans have helped that massively.
I agree.
It's been brilliant since the move. The way that Coventry has accepted us as a club has been fantastic.
And I think as well that Coventry-based supporters have bought into what we are as a rugby club as well.
Yes, and I think the way we play helps that. I mean, you're not going to come and see a 9-6 here.
Well, you might be if we're playing Northampton
or Saracens, but that game at the Majewski, that really was a really proud day for me, because having seen this club at Adams Park with 1,000 people there watching, to driving in, and I'm gonna muddy myself a little bit here. I got a lift to that game that day with 2 Saracens fans and my dad, who's a Wasps fan like me. Yes, I do associate with a couple of Saracens fans. I know,
I do as well. Don't worry.
I know it's not the best thing in the world, but and they could not believe the way we were welcoming in the team, because we drove through just in front of the bus, And everyone was there with their flags, they were making noise, and the Wasps chants were going, and that is just brilliant. And the players love it. You see the way James Haskell reacted that day, and it just creates such a great vibe around the club, and it's a really nice place to come and watch rugby, and that's what I love about our sort of group.
Yeah, and I think as well, after the game, when all the players came over as well, and pretty much all our supporters stayed in the stadium to sort of clap the team off, even though they'd lost the game.
Yeah, and it's just been a really good rapport between the club and the fans and the team, and I really like that.
Yeah, I think you need it as well. I mean, I go to university in Leicester, and I see exactly the same between the Tigers fans and their supporters. You know, there's a really good sort of connection between fan and supporter at Welford Road. And while I'm not a massive fan of them as a club, you know, they do have terrific supporters.
I've warmed to them a lot as a club in recent times, mainly when we weren't
winning things.
Yeah, and I can get on with them. I think we've got a new pantomime villain in the Boys of North London.
Yeah, but I tell you what, the Wasps Leicester is a cracking local derby now, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Since we've moved,
I was the first game. Was actually about a week before my dad's birthday, so we got hospitality tickets, and then so we walked in to the seat just before kickoff, and the whole place was full, and there was it was just one of the greatest atmospheres I've experienced as just in rugby. Couple of honourable mentions just to tag on the end here. A couple of retirees in recent weeks. First of all is Mr. Andrea Mazzi, who is a bit of a hero of mine of recent years, I must say. His mad performances in a Wasp shirt have been excellent to watch as a fan.
Yeah, and a very nice man as well, off the field.
Yeah, he's got a lot of time for the fans and always taking pictures and signing autographs, and he's a sort of typical old school rugby player. Yeah. And the other one is Owen Redden, who you would have heard in the intro, and he was a great player for us. I really thought we've always been blessed since the days of Rob Howley and Matt Dawson with having some
had a good scrum half.
Yeah, we've always had some great scrum halves, and when we beat Leicester in one of the finals at Twickenham, and he scored the try where Ibanez threw the ball to him from the line out, and he just ploughed through. It was just an amazing score, and he's done so much good for Ireland and for Leinster.
Yeah, and as well, when he was playing for Leinster, especially after he first went over there, if he didn't have a game, he'd always sort of come back, or certainly you always seem to sort of keep in contact with the Wasps boys. I know him and James Haskell are very close mates now, so he was a great servant for us. He's been an excellent player and another thoroughly nice man as well. Yeah,
and one final thing is that a man who in my opinion is the greatest ever to play for Wasps. He sits on the board of directors now, Mr. Lawrence Dallaglio. Has been inducted into the World Rugby Hall of Fame, which for me is long overdue.
Time too.
Yeah, it should have happened about 10 years ago. But he's in there now, and that's all that matters. He joins Johnny Wilkinson and a couple of others, I think Richard Hill from the 2003 World Cup winning squad in going in.
Martin Johnson, I think, in as well.
Yeah, I believe so. And that's good. I like to see players like that going together in a way. They deserve it, especially Lawrence, who was here for so long.
Yeah, I'm sure one day at the Rico he will have a statue, just not yet.
Yeah, he was such a rock of the club for so long, and he's still doing so much good, making sure that the playing side runs well from the directors, and then having him on the board as a fan is very, very, very reassuring.
Yeah, and I think as well, if you'd speak to any Wasps fan who watched Wasps from about 2000 to 2008, and they say, give us your top 3 favourite players you've ever watched, Lawrence will be in there.
Yeah, and for most people he'd be number 1, I would imagine.
He'd certainly be my number 1.
Yeah, and I've got a picture. I think I was about 10 at the time, and he was huge, and he was always so lovely, always taking pictures. He used to arrive before any other player back at Adams Park. For the new fans listening, all the players used to arrive in their own cars into the car park and walk in, but the car park was open to the public as well, so you could go in and get autographs and get pictures and things. And he always used to be the first one there, but he was one of the last ones in the building because everyone wanted their picture, everyone wanted an autograph, but he was always more than happy to do that for the fans, and it's always resonated with me. And he's a legend, definitely, at the club.
Yeah, I agree. One final point from me, obviously, by the time this goes out, we will have had the Champions Cup draw.
Yes.
But we're obviously recording on Tuesday, Champions Cup draw on Wednesday. So I've had a look at the draws. I think we fall into the second pot. So we should avoid such a hideous group as we had last season. But very exciting as always. A few good away trips potentially in there as well. But now I've said that, we'll probably draw Exeter or someone like that.
Yeah, an away trip we'd have normally. I wouldn't mind.
Or Sale.
Yeah, Sale in January or in December.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind going to Bordeaux, I must admit.
Yeah, I would like Munster. I've always wanted to go there.
Yeah, it's supposed to be a great day out. I mean, I've been to Ireland for Six Nations games, and they're fantastic then. So I'd imagine Munster would be a great day out.
And I noticed as well that our old friends Cast are back in the Champions Cup this season. So we'll probably end up pulling them out because we've had them enough times down the years.
I went the last away game we played against them. I went down to Cast, and that's a lovely little town. I must admit, we stayed in a what was the right at the start of Airbnb. We used it, booked the room in this bed and breakfast. Crazy French lady ran it. It was one of the most fun weekends I've had because all the locals, they're a proper rugby town, so they really embraced us, and it was just before Christmas, so that the whole town looked amazing. And apart from it being bitterly, bitterly cold, we won on the day, so it was good memories. Yes,
and obviously our final opponents from Adams Park as well.
Yes, yeah, and I wouldn't mind drawing them actually. I'd like us to have a bit of a more simple group this year.
Zebra, the draw everybody wants.
Yes, 10 points guaranteed would be nice.
Although we'll probably draw Ulster because of Charles Petertow, won't we?
Yeah, that would be. I don't know if I'd be able to watch that game. The wound is still a little bit raw. That Charlie's not going to be in a Wasps shirt next year, but.
Well, by the time you're listening to this, who knows who we could have drawn.
Yes, and I'm sure it will be fascinating to watch.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right, that is it from us this week. Please remember to give us a follow on Twitter. If you're on there, it's @TheWaspsReport. Give us a follow, give us a retweet. If you're going to give us any feedback, tag the club in it, please. I'd love for them to embrace this podcast over time, and if we can raise the profile, as I spoke about earlier, and get them to embrace it, then and work with them, we can give you what you want, which possibly is player interviews, staff interviews at times, and that's the overall goal here. But yeah, follow us at the Wasps Report. Mine and Rob's personal Twitters are both in the description on there. If you fancy following us as well, it's a bit less rugby chat on mine, and I know Rob's is a lot more overall sporting chat.
Yeah, football, cricket, darts, bit of pop music as well. I hope you like Coldplay.
Everything, absolutely everything. So yeah, give us a follow. Tune in for the next episode, which will be coming out some point in maybe late July, early August.